Welcome to WTF Real Estate, where to find real estate, and welcome to Florida. Today we are here with a local to Southwest Florida, Remy Briand, broker owner of Realty One Group Connections. We're breaking down one of the biggest misconceptions in Southwest Florida real estate, the idea that condos and single-family homes behave the same in the market. Is that actually true?
Not really. Here in Lee County, the gap between the two has significantly widened, and especially after Hurricane Ian. That shift affects affordability, desirability, and long-term value in a big way, actually.
A lot of home buyers assume condos and single-family homes appreciate similarly or have comparable long-term costs. What's the truth?
Well, they actually behave very differently. Single-family homes tend to deliver stronger demand, a more independent lifestyle. Home values typically appreciate a little bit faster than condos and has changed the affordability of homeownership here in Lee County. Condos are more usually affordable up front, and however, there's other fees like HOAs and reserves that affect the back end side.
So back in 2022, since Hurricane Ian had a major impact on the market here, how did it affect the condos versus single-family homes?
Well, there's a stigma attached with all that. Ian has changed a lot, especially in the condo industry, and people have shied away from buying condos and has kind of really hurt the sales in the condo industry in Lee County, and I think for the most part, a good portion of Florida. Pretty much with the 3 storms that we had back to back has really affected us on this side of the state. Insurance costs because of Ian have significantly increased. I'm going to say condo fees and of course the research are pretty much about somewhere between 50 and 65% increases ever since Ian, which has just really hurt the HOA fees. And then of course with condos now, ever since the issue with the Miami collapse, which some of you may know about, the state has implemented 2 platforms to help associations get into a better standing. One of them is the engineering study, which is the milestone report, and that's where they'll bring in engineers to check out buildings 3 stories and up, condo buildings, and make sure that the buildings are sound. And then the Sears report, which is the reserve study. That study in itself is there and designed to help the associations put money back for significant issues that may arise or catastrophic issues. People after Ian were like, oh, assessments.
There were a lot.
There were a lot of assessments. For example, you have an association that might have had a $30,000 assessment to put the building back in shape. You're kind of like, wow, why am I paying 30 grand for a condo? Well, if you look at some of the homeowners after Hurricane Ian, they lost their homes. So with an 18-foot tidal surge when Ian came through here, some of the homes were swept away. And let's use somebody that I know personally in Fort Myers Beach. Their home was washed away, gone, like it doesn't even exist. All you see is the foundation and the pool, and that's it. And in that particular case, they received about $450,000, the max for FEMA, which was $250,000. And then they received another $200,000 for contents and things inside the home. And if you look at assessments, you say, oh, condo, $30,000 assessment. But then you look at this homeowner, for them to put a similar home in place, and now they have to be 15 feet in the air to be on the beach, for example, they've got to come out of pocket of somewhere around $600,000 to $800,000 because the new home is going to cost them $1.2 million to build. So if you look at it that way, it makes a little sense sometimes to have a condo.
So what does the market look like today? Where are we at?
Well, single family homes in Lee County, and we're going to stick with Lee County right now, is somewhere between $390,000 and $430,000. Right now, condos are averaging somewhere between $290,000 and $330,000, and it's a great affordability point for people to get into a home in
home ownership. Yeah, it makes
home ownership. Oh yeah, for sure. Condos have an advantage right now as far as price point goes and affordability.
So beyond the numbers, what lifestyle differences should buyers consider?
Well, you have to remember, owning a single family home, you're going to have space, privacy. You can do a lot of things to the exterior of the home that you want to do, paint, things like that. Landscaping. Appreciation is typically a lot more in a single family home. However, you have more maintenance, you have greater costs, and you have a greater personal responsibility. Basically, you got to go out in the yard and work it. So, whereas a condo, you have, let's call it a team. You have other homeowners that live with you in this association. In this case, you have lower upfront costs, meaning purchase price typically, less maintenance personally. However, the building and the association do require maintenance. And then the drawback right now is the HOA fees. Less privacy, yes, I agree, less privacy.
So can you walk us through the actual costs between the two?
So the breakdown on average costs in Lee County, for example. Average cost for you to carry a supplemental HOA 6 policy, let's say for insurance on a condo, can range, and again, that's your contents. However, remember, when it comes to insurance, HOAs have master policies. So they're covering the exterior of the building. They're covering, hopefully, the grounds and other, items that way. So if you took your condo, flipped it upside down, and everything that fell out would be part of your HOA 6 policy. That's your contents, including cabinetry, trim, paint, flooring, etc., fixtures, etc., etc. Your master, like I said, is going to do from the drywall out, meaning the exterior. And that's part of your HOA fee. So you have your own supplemental insurance, your HOA 6, then you have your master. Whereas homeownership, let's go with a typical 1,400 to 1,700 square foot home, you're probably looking at about $4,400, I would say, on average. Now, if you're on water, like a canal or the river, you could probably add another $2,000 to $4,000 for flood insurance on that. Repair. Now, I factored in this type of number was about a 2% repair rate annually. So you're going to be on a condo, for example, of $300,000, you'll be about $1,800. And for a homeowner, 2% is about, on a $430,000 home, is about $8,700. Property taxes, that's all controlled by the state, the county rather. Condo is about $3,700. Homes range between $4,000 to $6,000 depending on value and where they're located at. HOA fees. The average HOA fee in Lee County right now is about $800 per month. Okay. HOA fees for homeownership depends on the community. And then that fee's usually on average in Lee County about $2,400. But now let's break out the differences between the HOA fees and the homeownership fees. So if you factor all those numbers in, an HOA and a condo and everything included, you're going to be somewhere between $17,000 and let's say $20,000 annually. Whereas homeownership in Lee County, you could range between, I'm going to say $30,000 to $36,000 annually, and that includes putting money aside for repairs. Quote, we call that the assessment.
So basically, condos provide a lower, more predictable cost, while single-family homes offer you control, independence, long-term value, but the expenses could be a little higher.
Correct.
So who tends to buy condos and who tends to buy single-family homes?
Well, a lot of times the condos right now are first-time home buyers. A lot of times it's retirees and snowbirds or anyone kind of looking for low-maintenance living.
And then single family?
A lot of times you're going to see families are going to be moving into single families, investors, people that are wanting more privacy and I would say a more rapid appreciation, wanting fewer restrictions like some HOAs have.
So with all that said, what's your advice to buyers when they're trying to choose between, do I buy a condo, do I buy a single family home? What do you advise?
I think the best for people that are looking for the least amount to do. Basically, they want convenience, they want lower cost. When they're down, let's say a retiree or a snowbird, they're down here for a season and they're all wrapped up. They do a couple things to button up their condo, make sure it's all secure. They close the door, lock it, and leave. Not only part-time owners, they have long-term or annual owners and they're here all the time. Whereas if you have a single-family home, you've got to now use a home watch system, or if you're lucky enough to have a great friend that's willing to buzz over to your house, once or twice a month to make sure the house is all in good shape, then you're lucky that way. Otherwise, you've got to have a home watch. Keep in mind when you're buying a condo, especially a 3-story or up, make sure you get the milestone report and the Sears report. That way you can get a great education about where that association stands. Make sure you guys get the reserves, make sure the budgets are there, they have good numbers. It's very, very important when you're buying in this type of community. When it goes to the engineering study, again, the provisions have been changed in our state contracts to allow more time for you to review those, and as well as the Sears report. There was a study done on the association, and what happens is they come up with an estimate, well, not an estimate, they give you a hard number actually, of how much you need to put into reserves annually. And that number cannot be derived from. And that's, things that the state has implemented ever since the Miami incident. So keep that in mind. Please make sure that you do a lot of homework when you're looking at condos. They can be very, very awesome places to live, and a lot of people do enjoy them, especially if they're more prone to being in a community.
So do you have any final thoughts for us on this topic?
So final thoughts, I'd say whether you're buying, selling, or investing, the right choice really depends on you, your budget, your lifestyle, and your long-term goals.
Well, WTF, welcome to Florida and where to find real estate. Thank you for joining us.
Have a great day.